Hey, it's Ethan from Zimmer Labs, and this is Christopher's Corbanth version 2 Crossguard. It's a budget build, but it's got a lot of additional small upgrades and tweaks throughout just to kind of improve the overall build quality, fit, finish, and performance. And I'm really happy with how it came out. It's a very user-friendly lightsaber, and from top to bottom, it's really just a easy to use saber with really good performance, good volume, good brightness, and hopefully with good overall reliability and usability. To begin with, like I said, I took a empty Corbanth Crossguard V2. It came in this matte black finish that you see, but Christopher wanted me to bore out the quillions, the side blades, because at stock the quillions are 3/4 inch diameter, so he wanted them to be bored over to 7/8. So I did that on both sides, and in so doing, the inside of, obviously the inside finish here was all just bare aluminum, and that kind of was eye-catching. So what I did was I ended up doing a matching matte black powder coat for this whole top section again, and I'm happy to say that it came out really nicely. I mean, there's literally no difference between the finish on that and the rest of the saber itself. I don't know if Corbanth actually used powder coat. It certainly looks that way. We did some non-traditional blade plugs here, as you can see, mainly because this hilt doesn't come with the Kylo style blade plugs. Those are something that are additional and aftermarket, so we opted for matching Graflex style brass quillion blade plugs, and this is actually a custom blade plug made from a Corbanth LS6 secondary emitter. But all of them have really good shine through, and they look nice. You know, they kind of match. They kind of fit well, especially with the brass belt clip here, matching the brass here, and then the copper, which actually kind of looks brassy, that's running throughout the rest of the lightsaber, so that, you know, the whole thing kind of matches. It's a nice motif. The next thing, I guess, to mention is this brass belt clip. This is a fully functional belt clip. The way it works is it slides into a rectangular channel, and this little plunger here gets depressed, and then once you slide it in, it goes past a certain point and it clicks back and locks in. So to remove it, you just kind of push this and pull back up. This I actually made myself on my mill. It was something I got a template for by just looking at a picture of a standard belt clip like this, and then sketching it out and using my calipers to measure out the appropriate size, and then I just took a sheet of brass and milled this out and sanded it down and polished it up a little bit. It came out nice. It looks like a brass belt clip that you know, buy online or buy at the store or something. It certainly doesn't look homemade. I'm also really happy that it's sturdy and fully functional. Next up, I wanted to add USB, because the way this build is done, I'll show you guys, the chassis is essentially permanently installed. It's not a removable chassis. So to access what you can access, I'll remove this cover, and you'll see you've got the battery compartment here, 18650 lithium ion battery compartment, and it takes non-button top, non-protected 18650 cells. This is an LG right here, just for demonstration purposes. But as you can see, there is nowhere to access the Proffieboard inside here if you need to reprogram it or update the operating system or something like that. You can unscrew the pommel, but that doesn't help because down there you've got your speaker. So no access to the Proffieboard once everything is installed and wired up. And so for my own, peace of mind, if this ever comes back for a repair or an update or a software upgrade, I don't want to have to essentially rebuild this lightsaber just to upgrade the operating system or to change one blade preset. So I put a small micro USB port in right here. Let's see if I can get a cable. So I put a small micro USB port in right here and simply plug it in. So we've got a USB Type-C to micro USB adapter here. I'm just going to connect that to my computer and then connect that up. And as you can see, it's already pulled up the contents of the SD card. So you can see these are the different sound fonts that are on there, which is great because that means now if any reprogramming needs to be done, it's a simple matter of plugging it in and running Arduino and just uploading, compiling and uploading whatever your new config file is or your new software update is. And it's that easy. And also you're able to use the USB to adjust the contents of your SD card, Christopher. So if you want to change your sound fonts or anything like that, you can do that just by connecting via USB. The battery itself typically has a secondary cover, but it wouldn't fit inside here and have everything cover and close correctly with this chassis and a battery. I think everything is just slightly thicker than it ought to be. Maybe I just got a bad print from Shapeways, but at any rate, the simple solution was just to do without this part and put a piece of memory foam in here to act as a pad to keep the battery in place. Christopher had asked me ahead of time if there was any way to use set screws to firm up this section so that this door wouldn't be loose or be liable to come loose while using the lightsaber. So I did drill and tap two very small 632 set screws right here, and now this is both magnetic and attached via set screws, so it's nice and solid and stable and sturdy. It doesn't make any noise, it doesn't wiggle, it's not loose at all. Main power right here. Auxiliary power is this bottom greeble here. The details on the electronics, the faux electronics here, I did also on my mill. I used a tiny 1/64 solid carbide router bit. I took actually some Samsung DDR3 memory and reflowed them to remove all the components from the memory, and then I removed all the coding on the PCB and exposed all the circuit board traces, and then I used my mill to precision cut these 3 and then 6 additional inserts here. Everything is precision cut and rounded so that they're a perfect fit in these little channels up here, just so that the fit and finish really looks as good as can be. Because, like I said, the finish on this guy is really one of the main reasons why I really am happy with how it came out. The same thing down here with this pommel insert. The way this works is speaker is set in here as a 28mm premium bass speaker, and it is set 3mm deep into the bottom of the hilt here. So there's 3mm between the speaker and the bottom of this pommel insert. As you can see, these has the same precision cut inserts pieces that I was talking about. And these are all pieces of DDR3. All these, each of these little shapes is where the actual flash memory that is used for the RAM sits, and it's very cool looking. Lots of really good small detail, and it fits just right. So when this screws in, it lines up so that each of these PCB cutouts faces one of the window cutouts perfectly, and it lines up so it is just meets the bottom of the hilt here and gives the speaker enough room to move without contacting it, so it sounds good, but you don't see any gap. There is like a 4mm gap there, but you don't see it because of the angle here. So it looks like there's no speaker there. It just looks like these are exposed circuits, as well as these guys. Then I upgraded this red wire. That's one complaint that I've heard a lot of people have with the Corbanth V2 Crossguard, is that the wire that it comes with is a bit flimsy, and so after you play with it a bit, this gets all mashed up and, you know, bent, and it just gets out of shape. So I mean, ideally you want this to look like this and stay looking like that. As far as function goes, we've got, like I said, lots of really good shine through. I used some custom blade connectors. They're very much like the stock Custom Works blade connectors, but they are, I think they're essentially kind of a knockoff. I bought a batch of Proffieboards from a gentleman in Taiwan, and he also had some proprietary Neopixel connectors, and he included 10 of those, one for each Proffieboard that I bought. So I wanted to try them out and just see how they work. And like I said, they're like the stock connectors in that they have the very small 10-20 pixels going around in a circle. There's 8 pixels. The only downside was that they're not designed as well as Dimitri's. Dimitri's include wiring and traces and the option to have a sub-blade so that the pixels here can be doing something different than the pixels in your blade. So I had to redo and reconfigure these connectors so that they actually do have a sub-blade option built in. So I did that on all 3. Which is not difficult. It's just you simply have to cut a trace in one place and then run wire from one place to another place twice. So what you want to do is have these be their own sub-blade and have the blade lockup effect on these guys be all the pixels, but on the blade be only some of the pixels. So that's why you have to have separate data lines and separate inputs and sub-blades, and that's why those wires are necessary. Let's put the blade in. This guy is one of the only lightsabers that I personally prefer a 1-inch blade on. It's partly because the hilt is so big and thick that a thin blade doesn't look quite right, but also because in the movies, Kylo's blade it's kind of wider than everybody else's, it's thicker, a little bit. So I feel like a 1-inch blade really just looks better. For the side blades, these are Outer Rim Sabers flame blades that I milled out and then put pixel strips and diffusing materials and everything inside of, and blade connectors on the bottom, of course, obviously. And then, like I said, I milled the side quillions out so that they would accept 7/8 instead of 3/4. And then tapped and threaded set screws for these guys as well as for the main blade. All the set screws on the saber, every set screw is the same size. It's 632s, and a T7 bit will work. That goes for the screws for this battery compartment, the screws down here for the quillions, and the screw right here for the main blade. Now, for the blade presets, there are only 6, mainly because if Christopher decides he wants more, we can always add more, but for a Kylo lightsaber, you don't really want a whole bunch of other blades. Like, I don't need a blue blade or a green blade. You want a few variations on Kylo's lightsaber, so we've got that's a random red per LED flicker blade, something that I think Megtooth came up with. It's one of my favorite blade presets when you're trying to get a good Kylo blade. We've got a staggered ignition going on, so the blade fires up really fast, 100 milliseconds, and then the side quillions are 10 seconds, but they're 500 milliseconds delayed. Next up, this is a standard fire blade with the same ignition delays and timings. K-Sith's Crossguard V2 sound font. And I love how fast the blades fire up. It just bursts out on the side, especially the side ones. And that's great because it matches the sound font, it really bursts. Force effect quotes, of course, built in.
I'll show you the dark side. Kill them all. Look how old you've become.
Different ones on each blade preset, of course, as well as different audio tracks for each blade. The volume may be up a little bit too loud. This is at 2500 right now, and for whatever reason this doesn't need a lot of volume. It's very loud even at 1500, which is only 50% volume, but that's a good problem to have. Third blade is a red and dark orange audio flicker blade with a turbine power up. This is Staple Sword, the sound font, and this is just a standard red blade with I think it's got a spark, a white spark ignition. Yeah, real quick spark ignition, no quillion ignition delays at all. Next up, this is yellow-white audio flicker blade. It's got a somewhat slow retraction. And then for the last blade preset, we have a really bright, kind of chalkish yellow, super fast igniting and super slow retraction. And then I think we're back to the beginning. As far as the blade presets go, I kept them simple. Christopher, if you want me to add some more, just let me know. That's not a problem at all. I can load it up with any and all different blade colors and presets you might want. But it's a Kylo lightsaber. You probably just want this one. But in case you want some variety, got a few kinds, a few variations, all of which are semi-Kylo-ish in one way or another. Next up, Christopher wanted me to add the battle damage sparking effect, which I typically will put on my Kylo sabers. So if you guys look in here, there is a little electric fire going on down inside this cutout. Something to make it look a little bit more realistic. And that's, of course, on its own data line. It's got its own programming, so that can be changed, modified. You can make it just on or off or strobing. You can make it white, blue, yellow, whatever you want to do. This is just right now a black and white strobe effect. And it is totally independent of whatever the blades are doing. To swap the battery on the fly, you need to hot swap at a convention, or if you need to charge your battery up, Chris, simply take a T7 and loosen up those two screws, pull the battery cover off, and then you're going to need tweezers or a plastic spudger. You just want to pop it up a tiny bit, enough to get it started, and then you can pull it out. But there is not enough room in here to put a pull tab and still have this fit and have the cover go over there and have everything line up. So you have to have a tool of some sort in order to get the battery out. To get it in, obviously you don't. And it's very stable. Pops in, negative on the bottom, positive on the top. That battery does not want to come out. You don't have to worry about it coming out. It's not going to work itself loose. But for that reason, you do have to kind of pry it out. But it's not difficult. Be careful with this auxiliary button, Chris. There's a steel pin mounted into this button assembly, which is firmly epoxied in there, so it's not going to come loose, but it isn't attached. There is a tactile button inside there with a large magnet mounted on the top of it, so it just sets in there, and the button is not going to come out on its own. So just, bear in mind that that's the way that this button works. The top button is a non-functional greeble, so it's not going anywhere. It doesn't do anything, and you don't have to worry about it. I guess the last thing to say is, finally, these flame blades, Christopher, they're awesome looking. They really look great, but because of they're printed in layers from bottom to top, that means that if you smack them into something too hard, they are liable to chip or break along any of those layered lines where they're printed. So be careful. They're not going to break under reasonable contact. They're not weak, flimsy, but just bear in mind that they're certainly not as stable as your main blade, which is polycarbonate and not printed. So if you are dueling or messing around, you might want to take these off. And if you want a second set of side blades that are just made out of standard acrylic blade tube, let me know. I can do that for you, so you can have some backups that are much more rugged and can withstand dueling and abuse. Because these guys will break if you're dueling with them on there. And somebody hits that, with a blade at even a half a swing, they're going to crack right off. They're definitely not intended for that kind of use. So just keep that in mind. Nice and bright. Can't decide which blade I like better. I think this one is the most movie accurate. Alright, thank you for watching, guys, as always. Christopher, let me know what you think. If you're happy with it and you are good to go, I can pack it up and ship it out to you as soon as you're ready. That's about it. And stay tuned. Like I said, I've got a whole lot of builds coming fast and furious, pretty much as fast as I can put them out right now. So stay tuned. We've got at least 6 or 7 more videos coming within the next month or two. Thanks, guys.